everyone ignored the janitor's daughter, until she spoke and sealed the CO's biggest deal yet. The morning light of downtown Chicago sliced through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Innovatech lobby. The air was thick with the scent of expensive coffee and low, humming anxiety. A team of German executives was due any minute for a deal that could make or break the company's year. Everyone felt the pressure. Then, a voice sharp and cruel cut through the tension. "Are you blind?" Alistair Finch, Senior VP of Strategy, stood over a man on his knees. The man was Leo, a janitor who had kept this lobby spotless for 20 years. A tiny scuff mark, no bigger than a coin, marred the marble floor near Finch's $1,000 Italian shoes. "I pay for perfection," Finch said, loud enough for the gathering employees to hear. He didn't look at Leo. He spoke to the crowd, making an example of him. "I don't pay for janitors to be seen or heard. You're part of the background. Start acting like it." Across the lobby, a teenage girl watched. It was Maya, Leo's daughter, waiting to walk home with him after her advanced placement exams. She was holding her backpack, and her knuckles turned white as she gripped the strap. She didn't glare. She didn't move. Her face remained a calm, unreadable mask, but her eyes recorded every detail of the humiliation. Inside the front pocket of her worn backpack, a rolled-up piece of graph paper was visible. It was a simple, hand-drawn flowchart, covered in complex equations and notes. A symbolic object representing a mind that saw the world in a way no one here could imagine. Nearby, Sarah, a young assistant clutching a stack of folders, flinched. She looked at Leo's bowed head, then at Finch's smug expression, and a knot of shared shame tightened in her stomach. She, like everyone else, looked away. The injustice hung in the air, polished and clean as the marble it happened on. The crowd of employees became a sea of averted eyes. They shuffled their feet, checked their phones, and pretended not to hear Finch's tirade. Their silence was a verdict. It confirmed Finch's power and Leo's invisibility. The system was working exactly as designed. The powerful were protected, and the powerless were erased. A few whispered, not in defense of Leo, but in fear of Finch. "He's on edge about the Berlin deal," one said. "Don't get in his way today." But Maya did something no one expected. She didn't confront Finch. She didn't rush to her father's side. Instead, she walked calmly past them both, toward the scuff mark. She knelt down, pulled a small, clean cloth from her pocket, and wiped the mark away herself. It was a small act of grace, a quiet rebellion. It said, "This shame does not belong to my father. It belongs to this floor." She performed the act with a focused dignity that made it feel less like cleaning and more like a sacred ritual. As she stood up, her gaze drifted past Finch, landing on a large digital screen on the wall. It displayed a cascading waterfall of market data from the Berlin project, dense, chaotic, and color-coded in a way that was meant to look impressive. For a fleeting moment, a flicker of intense concentration crossed her face. Her eyes weren't just looking. They were scanning, processing, and understanding. It was a moment of foreshadowing, a glimpse of the hidden strength she possessed. Finch, however, saw none of it. He saw a janitor's daughter cleaning a floor. He let out a soft, mocking laugh. It was a profound miscalculation. He interpreted her quiet dignity as submission, and her focus as childish distraction. He turned his back on her and her father, dismissing them from his reality. The German delegation was arriving, and he had a performance to give. He walked toward the elevators, confident and supreme, completely unaware that the girl he just ridiculed held the key to the very deal he was about to lose. The tension in the room didn't break. It just coiled tighter. The boardroom on the 40th floor was cold. The German executives sat on one side of the massive oak table, their faces stern and unyielding. The Berlin data was projected onto a screen a confusing storm of metrics that Finch's team had tried to spin into a story of success. But the story was falling apart. "Your interpretation is optimistic," said Mr. Klaus Richter, the lead German executive, his tone laced with ice. "It does not align with our on-the-ground reality." Finch's confidence began to fray. He stammered, pointing at complex graphs. "The predictive model is state-of-the-art." But the numbers didn't add up. The deal, worth over $200 million, was slipping through his fingers. Panic began to creep into the eyes of the CEO, David Harrison. He saw the company's future dissolving in real time. Downstairs, Leo was finishing his shift when he heard the panicked whispers. "The Berlin deal is dead." He saw Sarah, the assistant, rushing past, her face pale with stress. On a gut instinct, Leo stopped her. "Excuse me, miss," he said softly. "The data on the screen, my daughter, Maya, she understands things like that. She said the public charts were wrong." Sarah froze. She remembered the look in the girl's eyes in the lobby. Desperate, with nothing left to lose, she ran back to the boardroom, interrupted the failing meeting, and whispered to the CEO. Harrison looked from his failing VP to the desperate hope in his assistant's eyes. He made a choice. "Bring her in." Maya was brought to the 40th floor. When she entered the silent, tense room, Finch's face twisted in fury. "You cannot be serious, Harrison," he hissed. "You're bringing in the janitor's child? This is a corporate humiliation." Maya said nothing. She walked to the table, her worn sneakers silent on the plush carpet. She took out the symbolic object from her backpack, the rolled-up piece of graph paper. She carefully unrolled it, revealing her hand-drawn flowchart. It was simple, elegant, and devastatingly clear. With a pencil, she pointed to a single, overlooked node in her drawing, a junction Finch's multi-million-dollar software had completely ignored. The battle had begun, not with a shout, but with the quiet tap of a pencil on paper. "You're looking at the data as individual choices," Maya said, her voice steady and clear. It didn't carry the volume of power, but the weight of truth. "But this isn't about what one person buys. This is about trust. The model is wrong here." She pointed with her pencil to the node she had drawn. "This represents community signaling. In these German districts, people don't buy high-value tech because an ad tells them to. They buy it because a local, trusted leader adopts it first. It's a network effect. Your algorithm is reading thousands of individual signals, but it's missing the one signal that matters. The first one." Alistair Finch stared, his mouth slightly agape. His mind, a fortress of Ivy League degrees and corporate dogma, couldn't process what was happening. He looked from his team's overwhelmingly complex charts on the screen to the simple, hand-drawn diagram on the table. The girl hadn't used a computer. She had used logic. His inner thought screamed, "It's impossible. She's a child. She cleans floors." But his eyes saw the truth. A slight tremor started in his hand, a visible crack in his polished facade. He was exposed, his expertise rendered meaningless by a teenager with a pencil. The boardroom fell into a profound silence. The frantic energy of the failing meeting evaporated, replaced by an atmosphere of intense, focused awe. Every executive, American and German, leaned forward. Their gazes were fixed not on the expensive technology filling the room, but on the simple piece of paper and the young woman who had drawn it. Mr. Richter, the German lead, slowly took off his glasses, polishing them as he stared at Maya's chart. He saw in her simple drawing the complex truth his own team had been trying to articulate for weeks. The symbolic moment was undeniable. The hand-drawn flowchart, a product of pure intellect and humble materials, had just triumphed over a mountain of corporate arrogance. It was a moral reversal played out in absolute silence. Power wasn't in the corner office or the expensive suit anymore. In that moment, it was in the hands of a janitor's daughter, who saw the world not for what she was told it was, but for what it truly was. Mr. Richter broke the silence. He didn't look at Finch or Harrison. He looked directly at Maya. He pointed a finger at her flowchart. "That," he said, his voice resonating with respect, "that is the insight we have been searching for." He then slid his gaze to Alastair Finch, and his expression hardened into one of undisguised contempt. The public disapproval was a palpable force in the room. Finch visibly shrank in his chair. David Harrison, the CEO, seized the moment. The fog of panic had cleared from his eyes, replaced by a sharp clarity. He turned to Maya, his voice filled with a humility no one at Innovatech had ever heard from him. "Maya," he said, using her first name, "please, walk us through the rest." He had offered her the floor, officially sidelining his own senior vice president in front of everyone. Finch tried one last time to reclaim his authority. "Mr. Harrison, with all due respect, this is highly irregular. We have protocols." "Be quiet, Alastair," Harrison said, his voice dangerously low. The command was absolute. Finch fell silent, his face a mask of pale, impotent rage. His reckoning was not a dramatic firing, but a quiet, public erasure. For the next 20 minutes, Maya explained her analysis. She spoke of cultural nuances, community bonds, and the human behaviors that data could only hint at. She didn't just present numbers. She told the story of the people behind them. When she finished, the deal wasn't just saved. It was stronger. The Germans weren't just partners. They were believers. Harrison turned to her, a look of profound wonder on his face. "How did you see all this?" he asked. "No one on our team could." Maya looked toward the doorway, where her father Leo had been standing, watching in silent pride. She then looked back at the CEO. "My father always taught me to pay attention to the things people are paid to ignore," she said humbly. "He told me that's where you find the truth." The moral line landed with devastating grace, revealing not just the solution to a business problem, but the solution to the company's entire broken culture. 1 year later, the homepage of Innovatech's corporate website no longer featured smiling stock photo models. Instead, the lead banner announced a new, company-wide initiative, the Leo Project. Named in honor of Maya's father, it was a radical talent scouting program designed to find and elevate skilled employees from the company's most overlooked departments: maintenance, mailroom, security, and administration. It was real, systemic change, born from a moment of public humiliation. Maya's life had transformed, but not in the way one might expect. She had accepted a full scholarship, funded by Innovatech, but she had also become a paid consultant for the company. Her new mission was not to climb the corporate ladder, but to rebuild it. We see her leading a workshop, not in a boardroom, but in a simple conference room with a diverse group of employees. She's using a whiteboard, teaching them her method of human-centered data analysis. She is a builder, a teacher. Her story had a public impact that rippled far beyond the walls of Innovatech. A viral article in a major business journal, titled "The Girl Who Drew the Truth," sparked a national conversation about hidden talent and corporate classism. The piece celebrated Maya not as a prodigy, but as proof that genius has no pedigree. In the workshop, a confident, smiling woman helps her hand out materials. It's Sarah. In the past year, Harrison had promoted her, making her the executive director of the Leo Project. Her callback is a validation of her growth and courage. She caught Maya's eye and smiled. "They're listening now," Sarah whispered. Maya smiled back. The system wasn't just being challenged anymore. It was being rebuilt from the inside out, by the very people it had once been designed to ignore. Alastair Finch's old office on the 40th floor is now a vibrant, open-plan collaboration space for the Leo Project. The walls are covered in whiteboards filled with hand-drawn charts and ideas. It is a space of energy and hope. We cut to a quiet, upscale, but lonely apartment. Alistair is sitting by a window, looking down at the Chicago streets below. He was not fired in a blaze of glory, but quietly let go a few months after the Berlin deal for strategic restructuring. It was a slow, invisible fade. On his bookshelf, gathering dust, sits a corporate award for excellence in strategic leadership. It looks like a relic from another life. He picks up his phone and sees a notification, a link to the article about Maya. He doesn't click it. He just stares at her picture. A single, whispered thought escapes his lips, a final, internal reckoning. I was looking right at her, and I never saw her. The contrast is stark and final. Maya, the girl who was once invisible, is now building a community and a legacy. Finch, the man who once commanded rooms and wielded power, is now alone, just another face in the crowd unseen. His fall wasn't a crash. It was a quiet, hollow echo. True greatness is not about the title you hold or the power you wield. It is about the value you see in others, especially when no one else is looking. It is built in quiet moments of dignity, courage, and truth. The final, symbolic image is not of Maya in a boardroom, but in a brightly lit community center on a Saturday morning. She and her father, Leo, are volunteering. They are teaching a group of neighborhood kids how to make their own flowcharts, turning complex problems into simple, understandable pictures. The symbolic object, the hand-drawn chart, is no longer a weapon against injustice, but a tool for empowerment, given freely to the next generation. Talent is everywhere, hidden in plain sight, waiting for a chance to be seen. Who is the quiet hero you walk past every day? Subscribe for more stories where the unseen change everything.